It's the last day of group stage play here at the HGC Finals 2017. We've just put our first team out of Group D into the Blizzcon quarterfinals. That is Ballistics, second seed out of Korea, taking the necessary steps needed to repeat their crown as Blizzcon champs. Can they do it? We'll have to tune in next week for that. But right now, we still have a few more matches here in Group D. Up next, our elimination match. Soul Torturers from Taiwan versus Team Expert in Europe. One of these two teams has got to go home. It's going to happen right now. Let's head on over to the desk and get our experts' thoughts.
That's right, Kevin. We're almost at the conclusion here as we continue down the line with two more series to go. And, of course, Expert will be going up against Soul Torturers in a second. I'm joined at the desk here by Trixler, Wolf, and J-How. And Trixler, what we saw from Ballistics, they were pretty darn good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I don't think anyone here expected them to be, so strong at all. But, they're kind of dominating, and it's kind of a shock to see, so no big deal.
I mean, for me...
It could have just left it at, but go on.
Yeah, Wolf. I bet you don't feel the same at all.
Yeah.
I was worried that Expert was going to give them a challenge.
Sure.
I thought they were going to get out of the group in first, but I think that they really played well to Expert's style, and Expert didn't play well to their style, so they had a rough time there, but it's good to see return to dominance for at least two of the three Korean teams. Tempest struggling a lot yesterday. But yeah, this one itself should be a good one.
Let's take a look at the bracket, see what's going on so far, as well as what's to come, as we do have Ballistics in that top spot, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0. All of those fixtures up at the top. So it's been a fast day so far. We're going to turn our attention to the bottom, lower part of this bracket now, as Soul Torturers goes up against Team Expert, and the winner of that gets the opportunity against SPT. So J-How, looking at how Soul Torturers were able to do in their first series, I was pleasantly surprised at the level they were able to bring out in their first series.
It was, in the sense that they did not back down from a team fight against a team that was able to take a few team fights to Ballistics in our last series. So I think Soul Torturers has a chance. It seems like I've studied a lot of Team Expert, and they focus a little bit more on the macro. They do things a little bit differently than most teams. They kind of just do what is normal with a little bit of a twist and make you kind of adapt. But it's nothing that's overwhelming. Same for their team fighting. It's nothing that's overwhelming, even within their region against players that they know. They've never been the dominant team fighting source. They normally try and get a pick here and there. So I really wonder if Soul Torturers might be able to bring the fight to Team Expert in the series.
I'm wondering if what Soul Torture is going to do to Expert's very defensive play style. Whenever they're faced with these teams that are very aggressive, they play very passively, Yeah. We saw that in their series against Ballistics. I don't think that Soul Torture understands how to play like Ballistics did, where they just kind of slowly push and choke out Expert. I think they might be too aggressive, and very defensive style from Expert might counter that.
I don't see... Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can focus on Soul Torturers, actually, as we do get into this first game between these two teams. So, Tim, what can you tell me about them? How have they looked to you?
Well, Soul Torturers, again, they did surprise us in game number 1, but I also think that was a matchup that they understood and they spoke towards. They know what they're going to do against SPT. Yeah. We mentioned that we saw Team Expert play more defensive earlier against Ballistics, and while it's true, I don't think they're a defensive team at heart. They have the aggression set up, and they are willing to push the envelope when need be. They did draft a composition that should be a little bit more defensive on Tuma Spider Queen, but with Soul Torturers here, I want them to take the fight to Team Expert because I want to know if they can challenge them mechanically. I think that's the best place to actually try and break down Expert, is to put the burden of defending and winning a team fight on them.
Yeah, I think almost every team here, apart from maybe SPT, probably going into this group slightly overlooks the idea of Soul Torturers being a threat, but I think Expert now has to say, actually, Soul Torturers is a potential threat.
Yeah, I mean, everyone was saying yesterday's group was the group of death. I really feel that today's group was a group of death in terms of high-level skill, right? I mean, we had Tempest underperform yesterday, that's true, but today I think a super perfect team, obviously doing very well. Soul Torturers, a team and a region, Taiwan, of course, that's always gotten out of group stage, or not always, but very often more than the other minor regions. So I like this situation here for Soul Torturers. I don't think it's going to be an easy run. I think ETC is going to be a very prioritized hero here when you have Scroll, of course, and Bad Benny to look at.
Well, let's take a look at their opponents. It is Team Expert coming from Europe as the 3rd seed, but let's see what they're going to be able to do. J-How.
Yeah, Wolf brought up Bad Benny, and and he's kind of been a primary focus of mine. Same for Nick on that backside. But after watching earlier, it seemed like ADRD felt a little bit uncomfortable on the heroes that he was on. And we've seen Medivh band out against him no matter what battleground. And fitting into this double support meta, him playing some of these supports, it just hasn't quite looked as crisp as he had on other heroes. So I really wonder when it comes to the hero pool, when it comes to the drafting, if they might have a few tricks up their sleeve. Maybe Medivh gets let through and they early prioritize just for the sake of comfort. It's a big question mark for me coming into the series.
Yeah, that's the thing, is ADRD did look really weird in the Ballistics matchup. The Uther, okay, I can kind of understand. He's played it a couple times during the HGC phase, and while he's been more Q-build Uther and in your face, he can usually play it pretty decently. What I was more worried about is when I saw his Tassadar. His Tassadar and Ariel is almost second to none in the HGC. He's very powerful in those heroes, and he was out of position, not landing the important dimensional shifts, and of course not providing the shield where need be. So I'm wondering if ADRD just had a bit of a bad run, or if he's feeling some nerves today.
What battlegrounds would these guys rather prefer to play? Where do you think they would rather go if you had to think about their past?
Tomb maybe for exporters, a larger battleground. Actually really like the way that they play BOE. They do it a little bit different around the Immortals. They generally tend to push the opposite depending on the shielding and things like that. And it tends to catch people off guard, and next thing you know, they're up like 2 levels. They're like, wait a minute, how did we get here? They tend to sneak stuff like that in, but I think maybe larger battlegrounds will suit their playstyle a little better against a team like Soul Torturers.
Yeah, I think Soul Torturers would also like to play on Tomb, just given their playstyle, their aggressive nature. Sky Temple's always been a good map for this team, and as well as Please buff Arthas and previous iterations of this team. So I think those are the 2 maps to focus on for Soul Torturers.
For me, when you're looking at Team Expert, I think Tomb is Spider Queen. Obviously, as mentioned by the other ones, Dragonshire is one that they actually go to more so than other European teams. And then last but not least, Infernal Shrines. That's an EU special.
Yeah, it definitely is. Let's check out how things have been going in the HGC universe for the Cheers. Of course, almost approaching that 27 million, getting nicely on, and you can continue to contribute those Cheers. It's going up, boys. You can continue to contribute over in Twitch chat as well towards our Deadly Chaos Lizard. Notice I said ours there. All right, so the big question is we've theorized where the battleground might lead us to between these 2 teams. We're about to find out. Personally, I would like to see something like an Infernal Shrines myself, but we'll find out right now to see between these 2 teams where we're going, and it will be Infernal Shrines.
Nice.
I didn't cheat, I promise.
But picked by Soul Torturers, actually, so a little bit unusual here. I feel like these 2 teams really like similar types of maps to be aggressive, so that's very exciting, because obviously when you put 2 teams on a map that they like and they're very good at, you get a close match.
That you do, and also kind of lends itself to its own solo laners that like the double soak. These teams seem to really enjoy grouping up as 3 to 4 and then having that off laner kind of control the lanes, which I'm very interested in watching. Thuro is top 3, I would say, in Europe in terms of top laners. You're discussing him when you're talking about the Wubbies, when you're talking about the Zelias to a degree. So Infernal Shrines, that'll be a nice little struggle to see who in that side lane will be able to get an advantage.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, this is the best of 3. One of these teams is going home. One of them will not have the opportunity to try and go on to BlizzCon.
Do you guys think Soul Torturers will follow the trend of the Korean teams banning out Medivh against North America and EU?
Yes.
I think that, it's interesting because you don't necessarily have to ban out the Medivh, but you give opportunities to Expert if you don't. But because they're so tunnel vision on banning this Medivh, I feel like it gives Expert extra cards to use because it gives them the next best thing, because Medivh is not a first pick hero most of the time. So I'm curious if Soul Torture is going to follow suit with what we saw from Ballistics earlier.
But that opens up the door. A more comfortable hero, if you're playing that double support role, is the Tassadar. And I wonder if Expert might just first pick it here and then pick a hero around that later. I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Again, maybe they've got some tricks up their sleeve. They've been known to run Abathur on this battleground before. They've got a wide variety of things they can play. The Muradin obviously might be a little bit higher priority here, especially because Bad Benny's played so much ETC. But with the rework to Muradin, the changes to Johanna, we might see some stuff, and they do indeed go into the early Muradin pick.
I actually accidentally wrote on my paper, instead of ETC, I wrote Scroll in the ban slot. It's definitely a target ban. And, Bad Benny is one of the key parts of this team, so I like this controlling the tank pool of Scroll, which is very small. And you take the ETC away, you grab the Muradin here, you give Bad Benny one of his better heroes.
Yeah.
And I think this is a very safe draft from Expert. They're approaching this very carefully.
He's not lying. I just watched him rub it out. So there you go.
The fact fact checker up here. Hilarious. Got her back.
That's right.
So we're going to see what tank we're going to be getting later on here for Soul Torturers, but for now we have the Tassadar and we have the Sonya, who has made her way up into the top 3 picks of a majority of drafts. Just devastating one on this battleground, but in general, Sonya, not a bad pick at all, especially if you just want to peel her off and just do the shrine by yourself while you try to deal with whatever might be coming your way in terms of a push on the opposite side of the map.
Yeah, Sonya, one of the best solo Shriners in the game, and has been historically very popular on this map. And now that she's in the meta, the gain is twofold, where she is able to push that top lane really hard. Oh, Trixer, you cast Expert in HGC EU a lot. What's a go-to solo laner against the Sonya here for Team Expert? Do you think they want to go to?
You know, it's funny, actually, in EU, the Sonya was actually started, the training was started by a Throw. He was one consistently picking it up. We had the lead constantly coming out there from Team Expert. It was quite a joy to watch, and then Sonya became a bit of a mainstay. We actually haven't had too many issues to where we actually see a thorough answer back against a Sonya. Some heroes that he's great on, Tihaka, of course, Leoric as well is one that we saw a lot.
Don't you think a lot of this, though, the Tassadar and Sonya, is all targeting someone like Athero? Because if you take away the Sonya, he's not playing it. If you take away the Tassadar, he's less likely to play Tracer.
I'm going to have to say no on that one, because I think that they might easily fall back to a Leo here. We kind of saw the iteration of Murd and Leoric for another team just recently, and with the Abathur hat and the changes there, I think that it's kind of like a safe fallback option. One thing that does, it has insane shrine control for clear to win those punishers. It's really funny, if you watched Expert play Abathur, it's ADRD will set up mine traps like you would like if you're playing quick match, right? But he would do it and the team would kind of rotate around. I think the Leoric hover is definitely a target now, because this is something that they've run in the past before. But I like the Abathur into Tassadar, who can reveal those. They might not get as much value, but this feels very Team Expert-like to me. But with the Leo ban here, I think is a great ban for Soul Torturers.
I think we've seen Leo really exclusively with Abathur in this tournament, so it's a good adaptation here of studying these teams, watching the evolution of this group stage. So yeah, removing that now, so questions still remain about the potential solo lane. Abathur obviously can pseudo solo lane, but it's a very weak matchup against Sonya. You're going to have a lot of problems. So do you think they're going to look to pick up a melee here at some point?
Oh, easily. This Abathur is all just going to be here just to empower either the Murden or the solo carry they're going to pick up, whether that be the Vala or the Greymane later. And again, to go to J-How's point, drop mines and constant bushes. It only has to work once. It only has to work once.
I feel like we're in a weird spot where Athero might end up on something not as common, because it's very, as much as, you know, and Dahaka is something else that he would go to from here, they have an Abathur already. I mean, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, you can't really go to like a Malthael with the Abathur. It doesn't really make sense, so...
Kick it old school Illidan style.
Works.
It's been a while, and it's something Expert, if you look back, you guys remember early, I think it was early this year, or maybe it was Blizzcon last year, we saw basically a split soak Illidan who just continued to push lanes on Infernal Shrines, and then Expert's like, hey, what if we did that? And there was a time earlier this year, I think it was during Phase 1, that they did the exact same strategy on Infernal Shrines. So I don't think this is anything out of the ordinary, and it's nothing that Expert isn't prepared for. And right now, I think that they still have exactly what they want. But again, that melee hero will be a big factor here.
But there's a potential for even more wacky things down. We'll see what they want to go down, but we all know how Expert can be sometimes.
Yeah.
We do. I mean, there's always the Butcher they've shown 3 times in the past. I mean, it randomly comes out from a Thorough. I think we'll go down the Malthea route a little bit more. There's that Arthas being popped out.
Okay.
No Butcher now.
No Butcher for sure.
But the Arthas is also a denial pick. We don't see a lot of Arthas from Athero, but it's also another hero that generally plays that secondary bruiser style role on Infernal Shrines that contributes to the clear, that has the survivability, that does really well. So again, the melee here is going to be particularly interesting. I feel like we might see a Nick Vala come out here. That way you've got that sustained damage around these team fights. So what's it going to be for Athero?
I really like the Illidan Greymane idea that you were going back to. It doesn't suit this team's play style, and that's not really what they like to do, but I think it would be a smart draft for them.
But Wolf, Illidan into Sonya Arthas is very difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I look at this and I think Malthael and Greymane, but you can see Athero
looks not happy.
What's my hero here?
Yeah.
He knows he's going to have to pick a defensive hero, because he usually loves the aggressive heroes that can win that lane, and he's like, who do I gotta play here?
What if they just go, let's see Ana Malthael, let's go. I think it's going to be really tough to make the Malthael work. They're going to go a different route here. So this is an awkward draft for Expert. I don't really like it.
It scares me now.
I mean, guys, Double Genji has got a lot of power behind it, technically.
It's a variation of what we saw at the MSB. You have the Rhaegar here instead of the Karazim.
Yeah.
It's more, remember, that was more dive heavy. Finding a hero and then everyone just jumping onto one from across the map, right? The Tyrael comes in, the Genji comes in. Rhaegar can sort of do it, especially with the aid of Murden. So it's more hyper-aggressive.
They're setting themselves up where it's like, again, against Ballistics, they had a small window by which they needed to do damage, and once that window is gone, then the other team wins out.
I think Vala is a perfect pick here at the end of the day for Soul Torturers. You have Rain of Vengeance to try to shut down Genji's mobility there with CC. You have Detainment, you have Arthas, an Ancient Spear. Like, if you pick up the Vala, you have so much CC to lock down the Genji. When that goes wrong, Team Expert goes wrong with it. Again, they don't have a traditional solo laner. I'm not saying this draft cannot work for them, but with the tools that Soul Torturers have, if they hit their CCs correctly, I think they're going to have a great time, and there's the Vala. So I like the way that Soul Torturers is approaching this, and I think everything in this draft for Expert goes back to the frown we saw on a Thorough Angel's face. He just did not get what he wanted here.
The thing that stands out to me the most, especially on this battleground, it'll be easy to bait the Punisher over, but who's taking that Punisher down is the big thing, is that Genji doesn't have a lot of anti-siege damage. Tyrael, everything there. These are things that I see that tend to happen when you go with an all-in composition. It's everything or bust at that point. And I feel like if we see Soul Torturers get the first few Punishers and get that value, get that 1 to 2 level lead, try and get around level 10, get around a level up 11, 12, and just kind of play the talent tier advantage from there on out. They have insane clear on the Shrine, especially compared to their counterpart. So I think that if they can take advantage of those early Punishers, then that's going to be their opportunity to just kind of take control of this game.
Is there argument to say that if they do lose a Punisher, they bait the jump, and then they just go past it and fight the other team?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah, I think that's how they're going to have to win it, is avoid those CCs and fight hard with the Dragon Blades, Double Genji. They have a lot of damage. They certainly can make this work.
That is definitely the intention here of Expert, to force the fights, and they did well with it back at the MSB, or I'm sorry, at the Western Clash. The only issue with it was closing out the game. Can they do it here?
It's a good question, very good question. Continue to vote, of course, over on Twitter with the hashtags for either of these teams as we continue on with the hashtag HGC as well as @Heroes Esports. Before we get in, guys, quick thoughts. Who do you think is going to be taking this first game? We can do some predictions.
I really feel that if Soul Torturers plays this composition the way that it's intended to be played, then they have a very advantageous position to say that they have a high probability to win this. Draft-wise, I like what Soul Torturers is doing here.
Yeah, draft-wise, I like Soul Torturers as well. I think we need to see those CCs connect. We saw Scroll with some weak ETC play in their previous series, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here, even though maybe Expert is technically considered the better team. I think the draft is good enough to where they take this first game.
Blind faith here for me. You know, Expert let me down against Ballistics, but I don't think they'll let me down here. I think they're going to win it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, guys. I think our commentators are ready to go here into this elimination match in Group D, so take it away, guys.
Thank you, Caleris. Gillyweed and Dreadnought here to bring you the first of 2 matches to find the final team going to the top 8 of the HGC finals. And going to Blizzcon. Dreadnought, what do you think of the drafts?
I really actually love the draft adjustments, specifically on the side of Soul Torturers. I feel like they had a lot of really clever plays to try and limit the hero pool of Aetherial and make him not necessarily uncomfortable, but not the best hero and the highest impact hero here for him and the rest of Expert.
Yeah, taking away Sonya earlier on, that is a great pick for Soul Torturers anyway. I feel like that is Zace's best hero. If he's on point, he's going to be hitting every single one of those Ancient Spears. We know how much damage Poison Spear can do with that.
And I feel like they have a, kind of a really old school composition, but it's one that works out so great in the long run. The Tassadar, the Arthas, Sonya, it's a trio that we have seen almost since the beginning of competitive Heroes of the Storm. And it on a map like Inferno Shrines, I really am looking to see what Soul Torture can do here against Expert.
Well, let's get into it. The final team of Europe, seeing if they can make it through the single team from Taiwan, an elimination match for the ages. Winner of this will go on to face the single remaining team from China, SPT. We're headed into Infernal Shrines for game 1 of this best of 3.
Starting off, representing Taiwan in the blue is going to be Soul Torturers. We have Zay on the Sonya. We have Mir on the Ariel, Scroll on the Arthas. Next up, we have Tassadar, played by Cucumber. And last is Goddog on the Vala.
Looking to join the other 2 European teams in the top 8, it's Team Expert with Kursan playing Rhaegar, Bad Benny playing Murden, Aetherial Angel playing Tyrael, AD already doing some push-ups on Abath. They're getting pumped. and Nick playing Genji.
It's always nice to see AD Artie on the Abathur. That has been a hero since he started getting into the competitive scene that I feel like he kind of made his name on. And every time he's on it, I feel like he has kind of an impact that he brings to this game that very few Abathur players are able to. But already we see Soul Torturers looking to get that pressure into the early game. It's common against Abathur compositions. You always struggle in levels 1 through 9, and Soul Torturers should be looking for every front wall that they can get.
Yeah, we talked about Soul Torturers and the control they had in draft over Ethereal Angel with the Sonya pickup and then the Leoric ban, even the Arthas take, but we also should mention that the Medivh ban, very calculated, and then taking Tassadar there. Generally, AD Artie wants to play this kind of secondary, quote-unquote, support that is more of this enabling hero for his Ethereal Angel and Nick, playing something like an Abathur, Tassadar, Medivh. That's what we most often see from him, although we have seen a little bit more trend toward the second support for him, too.
Right now, we see Soul Torturers kind of following Expert with the rotations through the map, and that is, it's not that big of a setback, but it's not what you want to be looking to do with this style of composition that Expert does have. You want to be wave clearing, you want the Expert to be tracking you down, chasing you down, because the pressure you can have onto those front walls with the trio of this, specifically the Vala, the Ariel, and then really Tassadar is optimal, but anybody else in that typically can get that damage out. And I'm just surprised that Expert seems to be in the driver's seat here, and that Soul Torturers doesn't seem to make the moves to pull them away from it.
Yeah, Expert's making some moves, forces out a dimensional shift, but that's such an interesting point that you bring up, Dread, and one that I want to expand on. It felt like both of the first matches for these teams, both of the teams were kind of in that responsive type of play, with Expert playing versus Ballistics and then Soul Torturers versus SPT. Soul Torturers, it was almost like they were waiting to see if SPT would make some mistakes that they could capitalize on, and Soul Torturers, that works for them in their region, and they traditionally don't push advantages very hard, just waiting for their opponents to make mistakes, but I feel like they may not be able to do that here versus Expert, although as I say that, Bad Benny takes a lot of damage from ST to kick things off. Still no first blood yet.
You see Expert not giving any interest towards that shrine on the top half of the map for now. AD Artie posturing into the middle of the lane. He's going to be trying to get that pressure on bottom. Nice job here, this rotation to be able to catch out Scroll. Stormbolt does end up landing Detainment Strike there, but it's not enough first blood for Expert.
Taking advantage of the mobility or lack thereof of Arthas and trying to go back and forth between the lanes. Team Expert recognizes that Soul Torturers have a shrining composition with heroes like Tassadar and Sonya. And with Sonya moving very quickly up to the top, there was an opportunity for them to catch people rotating between the lanes, maybe even heading up there. Soul Torturers does have a lead in the Skeletal Defenders. We'll see how much Expert wants to commit to the shrine and how much they're more focused on just trying to get these early kills, delaying and denying the rotations. They found God Dog too, they'll get a second kill.
Very well done, and that is going to allow Expert to make the transfer up towards top, maybe get pressure onto Zaze as you see him skirmishing with that Tyrael onto the top lane. This is a very risky position for the members of Soul Torturers, and this is very clever from Expert with this Abathur composition, knowing that they can't compete onto the shrine and just looking for picks elsewhere.
Yeah, and it almost forced a panic response from Soul Torturers because they know that they at least need to get this shrine to try to get back in the game after being a level behind to an Abathur composition in the early game. Abathur feeling even free enough to be able to body soak in the bottom lane as he's pushing that in, but Expert kept members in lane, every single lane the whole time, so that they could, even if they lose some structures here, some towers, they still will be caught up and in a good place to go into the mid game.
And because this early game hasn't panned out maybe the way Soul Torturers wanted, they need to find a way to make these punishers really matter. The late game is going to be a huge problem. The macro pressure that Expert is going to apply is real, but we see them aggressing even farther. Stormbolt lands to the God Dog, and he's just deleted.
Yeah, God Dog had no chance there, and that was our fear when we were talking about whether Greymane or Vala would be a better pick here, trying to keep God Dog alive. They do have Kala's Embrace for the increased lifesteal, but that requires you to be able to stay alive long enough that you can get the lifesteal off of that. And Crystal Aegis, even at 10, there's going to be things for people to abuse that, like a Swift Strike in from Genji, and then the double stun with Heavy Impact and Stormbolt of Muradin.
And to kind of loop that back in, the survivability here of the Vala and the responsive playstyle that we've seen out of Soul Torturers, they've never really had Cucumber and Vala sitting together. The Tassadar Vala pairing that we know, and maybe the argument to take the Vala over the Greymane, you go, well, Tassadar, he's going to be the tool to keep them alive through that. But because they have been following Expert around the map, they've never really gotten to have that hyper carry double support Vala the way we have began to, know and love here over the past HGC Phase 2 Part 2.
Yeah, it's been more of keeping Ariel along there with Paula, but you're just relying on the heal from that, and then once you get to 10, yeah, you have Crystal Aegis. So Soul Torturers continuing to fall behind slightly to the members of Team Expert as they make Cucumber dimensional shift to safety yet again. And when all is said and done, that lead for Team Expert, Soul Torturers are trying to close it out as fast as they can to make sure that they don't give a lot of time for Team Expert to have 10, but they haven't really felt comfortable aggressing anywhere past their half of the map.
And it's very important because Expert and Soul Torturers neither have drafted a global, but mainly because the weak early game and the powerful Shaman cap that exists on a map like Infernal Shrines, timing the camps and making sure the camps are splitting pressure is very important for Soul Torturers because Expert, again, though it's not a normal global, Abathur will give you that side soak if you fail to apply that pressure and really set Expert too far ahead in experience for Soul Torturers to be able to recover.
Soul Torturers want to stick together as best they can, and they do get their Shaman. They're able to keep Expert from getting over and stealing those. And that will be very nice for this Shrine phase because that'll be pushing up in the top of the Shrines all the way in the bottom, but Expert makes the faster rotation to that Shrine. So now Soul Torturers still do want to get onto the Shrine, but without 10, it feels like maybe they should just try to push somewhere else and just get heroic abilities and defend versus that Punisher.
I completely agree, and it looks like Soul Torturers have come to the same conclusion as us here. God Dog and friends are going to try and apply this pressure towards top. Nice juke there with the Thero Angel. He's going to buy time. It's the rest of Expert looking to get the flank. Nick goes in, finds himself a reset.
They'll get that. They get 10 to Nick, hit by the Detainment Strike, but ready to go in with the Dragon Blade. He uses Deflect, takes down one, slicing, dicing, hacking through the members of Soul Torturers as another falls. 4 kills for nothing.
Clean play coming out from Expert. Meanwhile, the Rhaegar taking all the skeletal defenders. This is going to be a second Punisher for Expert as they now round 7-0 in kills. This is dominance coming out from EU.
From EU with an Abathur composition early in the game. Punisher baited over to the defense of the fort, but Expert are going to get here quickly so that they can maximize every single aspect of this game. They get the kills, they take down towers, the Punisher gets pulled in, Benny's ready to go, he's got the Abathur hat, he's feeling good.
That's one of the scariest heroes, especially warriors that have that Abathur hat on, other than maybe Arthas, which obviously Soul Torturers picked up for themselves. So now we've got to be looking at the later stages of this game. It hasn't panned out in the early game. The Abathur coming online to the later stages. At what point, how does Soul Torturers find a way to hit the brakes onto Expert in the game plan that they've executed, Gilly?
That is a solid question. They've just been behind in experience this whole time. So obviously making sure that they are in the lanes, getting some pressure, and then getting some picks. They have a composition that has the ability to do that. They have an Arthas, the Sonya too, and it always seems like they're the ones being aggressed on. Even in this instance, the rotations are just far faster from Expert, but they can stick together, get a fair fight around a Shrine, which it may be the next Shrine is their best bet to do that.
Yeah, it does seem like picks are going to be the tool that Soul Torturers has to rely on. Tassadar maybe can get a couple of, extra vision with that Oracle to make sure they keep Expert locked down into the improper areas, and this is brilliant decision-making from Soul Torturers on that same line of thought. They're trying to get the invade and make sure they can force a fight before the 13 talents here arrives for Expert.
Yeah, they want to see if Expert will take the bait and get in here for this enclosed place, a place where Arthas just would wreak havoc, where Sonya would be able to do so much with her whirlwinds. But Expert don't bite. They are okay with flipping the switch to macro mode until they get the level advantage that gives them a talent tier advantage, and at that point, they'll be ready to bite back.
Yeah, this is going to be during the Shrine phase. It's going to spawn over the next 30 seconds, so this is unlikely for Soul Torturers to be able to achieve this 13 talent tier window. Then immediately you go, well, they have to play that around possibly, like we saw over the first Shrine phase. Then you go for a split push pressure, you look for that. And it doesn't feel like they're making that happen because every time Expert is catching them off guard like this, Cucumber gets the dimensional shift, but it seems too little too late.
Well, Mirror came back in with the Crystal Aegis, and a pop of Archon showed that maybe Soul Torturers wanted to keep that fight going. But Bad Benny and the rest of Expert will disengage, and that's a long cooldown that Soul Torturers doesn't have. But what it does do is force Expert down, and that gets Soul Torturers on the point, and they're just about to get 13 very soon.
It's only 8 skeletal defenders, but those were very important that Soul Torturers picked that up while the members of Expert were distracted. They now need to round out that 13 talents here, which you can see them getting the experience up on top. How many skeletal defenders are we going to see Expert get, though, until they end up getting those talents?
No Aegis, no Archon, and no Wrath of the Berserker. Soul Torturers will give up another shrine to Expert just to have 13, maybe try to take the fight beyond the Punisher. I am fearing for the members. They are going to run back in. If they're going to make a fight happen, it has to be right now.
And they need to, and they don't have the Sonya. Bad Betty gets the Dwarf Toss immediately. Nick drops the Sanctification, and Soul Torturers lose their Ariel.
Oh, that was just about the most fruitful Swift Strike. And then you see the wind-up of Nick. You're like, no, this is not going to be good. And it's going to get worse for Soul Torturers as Bad Benny dives back on in. The clone goes down. Soul Torturers nearly lose their warrior. Rough spot here as the jump was before the gate.
Oh, they get the turn immediately on to Nick. Bad Benny and friends biting off a little bit too much, dropping the Avatar and Ancestral Healing. Punisher leap off cooldown just now, but nobody looking to get the follow-up quite yet, as that was a really good response from Soul Torturers.
Yeah, I thought it would be bad because the leap didn't put it over the gate, so they couldn't be as safe attacking it, but because Expert were so desperate to go in along with it, it was going to make the fort attack them too, and they turn around the lockdown. Still there, you gotta respect an Arthas.
You gotta respect the Arthas and the play that we see out of Expert here. Soul Torturers does show signs of life, but by no means does that get them back to even footing. Still struggling with the experience. The 16 is going to be here. But there is a nice moment for Soul Torturers that I do think they can rely on 16 over the next Punisher, as long as they don't get a couple of picks. Very, very scary. The rotations that we see out of Expert, they are not letting the members of Soul Torturers get any experience for free. Meanwhile, we see Abathur conveniently just constantly having those side lanes, and it's why Expert's been able to pull ahead, other than obviously the dominant team fight.
Yeah, and Expert playing with those aggressive rotations is what is enabling ADRD to feel so comfortable body soaking with his Abathur, but it also is showing us a different Expert than we saw versus Ballistics. They are willing to be way more aggressive. Cucumber even is going to be made to use his Archon just so he can dimensional shift and stay alive from this constant diving under forts, not even caring where they go. As long as Expert can find a member of Soul Torturers, they're willing to get the fight going.
I feel like that's a brilliant point that you brought up, though, about talking about the aggression in the transitions that four-man provides. If they are not as aggressive on the side of Expert that they have been with this positioning, Bad Benny constantly getting the flanks, Nyx always making every squishy second guess their posturing up, ADRD wouldn't be able to go out and be the, the slug he was born to be. And luckily, the members of Expert, they just truly enable that here, and it's now going to be a massive problem. It has been a problem through all moments of this game. But again, Soul Torturers will get that 16 talent tier. They'll have that even footing fight. It just feels like with how dominant Expert's been, I don't even know if that is going to be a turning point for ST.
Yeah, it's hard. 16 was a really big power spike for Expert, especially the control of fights between Dwarf Launch. Bad Benny's already been pretty scary with where he's dwarf tossing on top of members of ST. It doesn't get any less scary now that Dwarf Launch is online, but also Holy Ground. They have so much control between those two level 16 talents. ST push out pretty far, wanting to get 16 off of this fort. So close to using that control with the Holy Grounds, with the heavy impact to split apart ST, but it doesn't happen. ST are just about to 16, and that's where things really start to come online for them too. Will of Heaven or Wrath of Heaven for an Ariel. You've got Remorseless Winter with a Root for Arthas, and then of course Nerves of Steel. Sonya gets a lot tankier.
ADRD made his body teleport there down to bottom to help that camp out. 18 Skeletal Defenders have been picked up in this window without Soul Torturers getting the 16 talent here. They now have it, but after losing a member, again, Cucumber getting caught out throughout mid, it just feels like another Punisher, but look at Bad Benny setting up the play.
Yeah, the Sanctification is perfect as God Dog comes out of the Aegis. He just can't live, even throwing down the Rain of Vengeance, and ST are getting picked apart one by one just as they get 16. Rough going for our Taiwanese team.
The Punisher is going to be following up the damage that Expert is going to present to this bottom keep wall. And if Soul Torturers, when everyone survives, this is going to be a keep almost 100%, but if they lose any members beyond that, I would not doubt Expert on just marching towards the core and ending this game quickly.
So nice to see Expert show the lethality that they have been working on, not only throughout all of Part 2, when they started out versus Dignitas didn't really show that, but then a lot of times being caught up or even ahead of Fnatic in their series until they lost a late game team fight, closing out the game. That's something that Trick talked about. A double jump, Punisher and Murden on Scroll.
They're going to get the damage onto Scroll, but all members of Soul Torturers are alive. Expert, you can see they're fishing around. They want to get it. They go in for the door toss stun, but Goddog, he's going to be fine on that Vala. Now the Punisher is leaping away from the core, and the shielding is still full here. I'm surprised the members of Expert are not committing to a kill nor the core. Now Soul Torturers, they're going to punish.
Yeah, they do punish. They pull the Punisher away and then go after the members of Expert when they move to the core. And that is going to be needed to be cleaned up eventually, but the most important thing here is that Soul Torturers hold, and a lot of that was the fact that Expert were not 20 at that point, but they'll make a fast rotation, a pit stop, if you will, to take out the mid fort, and that's going to get them closer to those Storm Talents.
Yeah, you know, the waffling around there for a second really doesn't cost Expert anything here. The 20 talents here, and the 3-level lead is so far away for the members of Soul Torturers that they honestly should be trying to take and force this fight. It's the only lane where a fort is down on the side of Expert, so they desperately need to take the skirmish.
I'm going to try for that before Expert can get 20, but the disengage has been good for Expert. Now remember, not only is there a keep down for Soul Torturers, but there is an Abathur in play for Expert. That means that that will most certainly always be pushed, that bottom lane. And the minute that Expert take out a few members of Soul Torturers will be the end of this game.
Yeah, if you think that catapults are annoying, you know, post 20 when you're playing on your own and you don't have a global or wave clear, Abathur with any catapults at all stages of the game is equally as annoying. And luckily for Soul Torturers, they do have the wave clear. It's just the Vala is mainly their main damage source. You don't want her to be the one back there and helping out. There are really no major, you know, standout tools here to be able to deal with the oppressive playstyle that ADRD is going to unfold. Yep. Nice holy ground there for Athero. See if it gains him something.
Zace goes back in, hitting that crucial spear. Nick will swift strike away, saying that he is one versus all the members of Soul Torturers. And it is a composition that wants to stay together, which is why those holy grounds can be so impactful versus Soul Torturers and can force out early things like a Crystal Aegis. But the longer Expert keeps Soul Torturers toward the top, the better the mid and especially the bottom will do.
I adore the body language Expert's displaying right here, constantly trying to get Soul Torturers into this area of a chokehold. They've never once moved up towards that fort, though it's easy for them to take it out, just waiting for Athero to get a holy ground play. The invade attempt's going to be real. Detainment strike goes on to Bad Benny. Scroll, not going to drop a Howling Blast. So just pushing off Expert as we have our next Shrine phase.
This is a tough one, Dread. This is maybe for the game. As the shielding for Soul Torturers core, just by Expert keeping Soul Torturers at the top side of the map for so long, goes down. Just a free 7%, 10% on the core before someone has to go back. That someone is Tassadar.
Athero. Oh yeah, wow, Bad Benny already getting the Aegis there.
Saint.
It's keeping Goddog alive for a moment. Nick trying to get the hack and slash double reset. Ancestral goes down, but at this point here, the members of Expert are going to blow this team fight right open.
Yeah, the Dragon Blade is just too much to deal with. Crystal Aegis, we have seen it struggle a lot in these team fight compositions because of how telegraphed it is and how it's used on a low health target. And with this kind of dive, you just can't keep someone alive after the fact. Team Expert takeout for 16 kills to 1, and they'll march on to the core of Soul Torturers to take game 1.
That was very impressive play executed between Bad Benny and Nick. The synergy from minute 1 to 18 there at the final kill. Every single time Bad Benny went out, he was just drawing so much aggro from Soul Torturers and enabling that Sluggathur there, making ADRD a huge problem. Impressive play from Expert and sticking to the playstyle, you know, that I feel like they grew with originally in the European scene.
Yeah, it's really nice to see Expert after a difficult loss versus Ballistics coming back now, bringing in more aggression, understanding the costly issues for them in that series versus the powerhouse team from Korea, and now being able to get that victory. Now it's time for Soul Torturers to realize what they need to do, what kind of changes they need to make in the draft so that they can try to win game 2 and take us to the third and final game. Let's check in with the analysts for game 1.
Thank you very much, guys. Yep, that's right. As the Genji Abathur, we haven't really got to see it that much, not at all during this tournament yet, but not since for a while in other league play, etc. But it showed why it's still very, very powerful, J-Howe.
Yeah, at what point do you say, all right, this was better than this, that was better than this, and we wondered what would the melee be. We ended up seeing Tyrael picked up on the back end, and we actually have a replay to show just how valuable that Tyrael was. And if we just, you know, can watch how this plays out, it's going to be really interesting because you see Tyrael, obviously with the holy ground there, kind of zoning everybody out. And the primary target, we pause it here, God Dog's in all kinds of trouble. And we'll see this as we roll it forward, that he's the primary target. It was completely zoned. The Crystal Aegis comes out. And if we pause here, you can see on the left side, the Sanctification comes down right as it pops, because that's going to do a lot of damage. But the timing on everything was so precise on everything that Expert was doing that it just felt like Soul Torturers had no answer. And when we roll it forward at this point, you're diving under there. The Rain of Vengeance is doing nothing. At this point, this is just Expert doing whatever they want. And it was all due to the timing, the play of Tyrael being able to use the Holy Ground there post 16, ended up choking out the Peel style heroes. Sonya and everybody had to take a long walk to try and save that. And at that point, it's too late. So you really got to credit basically the entire team. But the Tyrael, which we weren't sure what would be that melee pick, I think was a phenomenal pick at the back end of that draft.
Yeah, it's funny because we were worried about Thera Angel, worried,
Yeah.
and then the Tyrael comes through, and OG Tyrael, BlizzCon 2015, here you go. Shouldn't have doubted him for a second. And you've got this guy who's just so fantastic at timing out these sanctifications. But this coordination with this draft, even though, you know, on the desk, it looked like, okay, they kind of just flexed into this as it wasn't their plan, it looked like it was so well practiced, very well played.
I think a line you said in that replay that really stands out to me is God Dogs in all sorts of trouble. You could literally name that match that Expert versus Soul Torturers. God Dogs in so much trouble. It kept looking like every time in the beginning of the game that he just never realized how explosive this composition can be. It can really just blow you up. The only times that he was actually safe is when his teammates, Cucumber, was in trouble or getting blown up. Tassadar died twice in that game before hitting Dimensional Shift. Twice before hitting Dimensional Shift. That's how much damage this composition has and how good Expert is at executing it. Beautifully done by Expert.
Pretty terrifying. A good start for their campaign here in this series. I'll get your thoughts in a moment, Jay. How we're going to go to a shout out from our sponsors, and when we return, game number 2.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Game 2 rapidly approaching here for the 2017 HGC Finals, and something that I think goes in Expert's favor is that they don't necessarily need to bring out a strategy like this again in this series, at least. They could if they wanted to, but Genji Abathur is one of those nice tricks to throw into a draft that's like, okay, this is very powerful. Are you going to ban an Abathur? Question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yeah, it's Medivh, Abathur, pick your poison. And I really wonder if we'll see the same style of draft that I talked about in the first series against Ballistics, where ADRD on heroes that we haven't seen him on tradition. I'm not saying he can't hold his own on the double support role. It just didn't look as precise as we normally see. Like, the Abathur pick is nothing new for them on Infernal Shrines. The Medivh was banned out. They went into it early, and it ended up paying off, so they could go back to a lot of the comfort things. Remember, they're playing for their spot to get to the next match just to get to BlizzCon. So at this point, it almost feels like if you got any tricks, go ahead and go, or if you got the comfort, see what happens.
Where we're going to go. Battleground ready for our second match here, and it will be Tomb of the Spider Queen by Team Expert. But I remember that you guys didn't even mind this for Soul Torturers either.
Yeah, this is a map we were talking about as being really exciting to potentially see in this best of 3 because both teams seem to do really well on it. I think Team Expert plays a little bit more technically, and Soul Torturers just kind of aggroes the map. And obviously, that doesn't mean that Team Expert's not aggressive. It's just a little bit more technical of a style from them. I do feel like part of the problems for Soul Torturers in that last game, too, is Skrull was locked out of ETC Muradin. He was an Arthas. He couldn't hit those stuns. He couldn't hit rather roots with the Howling Blast. We didn't see really good Rain of Vengeances. And sometimes they could have blocked those Sanks from going down. That's what I'm worried about for this team is if Expert takes the tank line again, puts Bad Benny on the Muradin, removes the ETC.
Yeah.
I'm worried for Soul Torturers.
One game away from elimination are Soul Torturers, and they start things off how every team has started off against Team Expert.
To add on to that point that Wolf was bringing up here, I think Expert has identified that Skrull will struggle if he's not on that ETC. You know, back at the older Eastern Clash that we had them in, it was more pick tanks that we saw. Stitches, a Nubrak, and on that Arthas, I'll straight up say it, he didn't play that tank well at all. There were too many moments where God Dog was in trouble, and before Skrull even responded back to help out God Dog, he was already dead. Yeah. He was gone. He would come back to the fight. It's like, oh, well, I guess I'm here holding my E button. And that is not okay. If you're playing a defensive tank, you need to be in a spot where you are able to, A, handle your opponents that's coming at you, Bad Benny, and then 2, you can save your carry.
I think banning the ETC here again is a very wise choice. I think they're thinking a step ahead potentially right now, burning down this time bank, but if they give Soul Torturers the ETC, it's a very strong tool on this map as well, specifically because the distance between lanes is very short, can be very aggressive. And let's see if Soul Torturers grabs the Muradin now, because, you know, that's the next go-to here for this team. They ran Garrosh on Tomb last time.
I think the Muradin's a safe pick. I really wonder, after our series earlier, Trick, looking back on the EU HGC, this was something they like to run Chromie, they like to run Vala, they also like to run Tracer, as we saw, and they've run Chromie Tracer before in the league, but it did not look good against Ballistics. You think that might be shaking them away from that style of strategy?
I don't think so. It was a bit of a weird variation. Typically, we don't see that that Tracer and that Chromie together. It's usually like a gray main and a Chromie together to set up that idea. I think Tracer was that pseudo adjustment because the Tassadar was picked up on the other side into the Chromie. So you go for the damage first, Tracer cleans up. And it happened a couple times. I just think Ballistics was a little bit too good at controlling the fight.
A Tracer comes in, they don't necessarily need to pair that up with shields, but down the line, Zarya could be something. We've seen EDRD play it before.
Yeah, against Ballistics, when they grabbed the Tracer early, it was with a Uther Malfurion.
They generally always do, yeah.
With the Chromie, right? It was not, very different from what we see right now. It was on the same map, Tomb of the Spider Queen. When we saw Tomb last time for Soul Torturers, it was a really weird draft. They went into the Lucio, Kel'Thas, Malthael kind of draft. Did not really work, kind of fell flat there. And I think this is a big problem. It goes back to Scroll's lack of ETC. What did they build with this Tassadar? This time, the play we saw out of God Dog on the Vala was pretty bad last game. You talked about the lack of peeling, too, from Scroll. I think this team has already kind of been figured out by Expert, and I'm not really sure what direction Soul Torturers should look to here.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of making Scroll happy. I think God Dog didn't have a bad game. He just didn't have any options available to him. He had no teammates around him when he needed them. So making sure that Scroll on a tank that he is happy with is fine. Maybe you got to pull off the Zophmana takes now. Maybe you bring in that Stitches and go for a pick comp.
Yeah, tough to do with the Greymane chosen as a DPS. No offering of follow-up CC, so I think Stitches might be off the table. You know, there's no Uther here. There's Garrosh is banned.
Garrosh was the last warrior that was played from Soul Torturers, and we saw them in the match you were alluding to earlier. So Team Expert takes that away.
And now, what does Soul Torturers go to here? I mean, the Morales ban something we'd see in Korea all the time with Tassadar is not available for the Tracer. This is not a crazy one, but you have Arthas left, not strong as a Tracer. If you can't hit your Howling Blast against a Genji, are you really going to hit them against this Tracer? I think the answer is very unlikely.
Well, for now, they're electing to think about a support takeout, and this is one that I actually wanted to be taken away. Even with it being the Tracer already picked up on the right side, which is typically what we see Nick pull up of, you want to take that option away from him. Chromie is being hovered, and I think it's a wise choice. The only issue is that this time we have that Muradin. Typically, you have that Chromie paired with the Johanna because she brings in that wave clear, but with Muradin being up and available for Team Expert, there is a chance they might not go the Chromie route. Regardless, it should be safe and ban it out, and they do so.
And it gets you a bit easier target. We saw it with the Johanna earlier, and you can kind of get that condemn into a Chromie bomb, but generally now, especially with heavy impact, you got that double stun early. Your kill potential is a little bit higher. The question for me now is going to be for Expert, will we see the Mage style? You know, the Vala is kind of the backup option, but a Vala Tracer might not work too well since there's no tank on the other side, could lead into a Johanna blind style. So we've seen some Kel'Thas in the past, Gul'dan quite some time ago. I wonder if they, obviously they need to have some wave clear. I wonder if they might go Mage style here unless they feel comfortable going into the Vala. I feel that's pretty much what we're going to be looking at in terms of wave clear and their main damage dealer.
I want to ask you, Trixler, I talked to Claris about this a little bit earlier when we cast Expert against Ballistics. Is it out of the realm of possibility to pull a Morales in? It was highlighted earlier and go for the solo DPS Tracer. I know it's not necessarily the style of Expert. Is that feasible here for them?
I mean, I think I'd prefer a Sonya Karazim from them if they were to go aggressive at all. There's going to be a Brightwing and a Malfurion. They've played Morales once, but Expert really isn't the team to pull up in Morales. It's that Dignitas that enjoys her the most. The Brightwing Malfurion is very interesting. So you get a pseudo shield, as you were mentioning, with that phase shield onto the Tracer, so that should be helpful, allow for the dive. They will need some setup damage, though, and that should be coming in with their fifth pick.
Something we have not seen from them before, something that Brightwing does is add spell armor. You hide your pick, your damage dealer, and on this, well, actually, they've already got Rhaegar Tassadar. I haven't seen them play it. I don't know anything about their scrims that I can say that, hey, this is it. I'd be okay with the Kel'Thuzad.
For Soul Torturers again?
No, for
No,
Expert.
Oh, okay. I was like, well, I don't know about that. That's a bit crazy. Well,
Could be.
I don't know where you go here for tanks, though. Like, where do you go
Johanna,
here?
keep it safe. Play simple. The hardest part is with the Johanna, obviously you get the blind on the Tracer, but getting the lockdown, any type of point-and-click, stun, poly, anything like that. Instead, they have 0. They have 0 CC, hard CC, to do anything towards Tracer.
However, the comp is tanky. Genji can deal with pulse bombs if he uses his deflection correctly. You have Tastar shields. We said there were a lot of ifs, though, last time for Soldiers. Can they stun the Genji? Can they stop this DPS? If they hit these things correctly, they can, but the execution was so poor. I don't have faith this time with this draft for Soul Torturers. Are you guys still thinking that Kel'Thuzad is the last pick here?
I feel Mage style. Mage style for wave clear unless they just resort back to Avala. This is Nick's hero.
Yeah.
I think you just go Sonya and you just run them over with the single
Give
Tracer.
Nick Tracer.
It's very rare that happens, though. Sonya Tracer, both of them on Expert.
Sonya, Tracer, Muradin, Brightwing, Malfurion.
Yeah.
Seemed that odd to me.
Put me on the side that I do not like solo damage dealer Tracer, not just because it's tough to get kills, but simply the fact that defending Webweaver waves with this composition is not terrible with the Malfurion in that composition, but it's not great by any means.
Let's see. Tychus!
Whoa!
Okay.
I guess this is to help burn down the Tyrael front line and to allow Tracer to do what she does best once that happens.
First Tychus of the tournament.
Yeah. Good wave clear as well. Very important for the map.
Yeah, it looks like the Tychus is also going to be one of those bolsters to help push with the Webweaver, right? You move into Odin form, break down those forts. You have siege potential from way far out in range, which is really nice.
You also have the protection, as you said, the Odin. The Odin also provides armor. He also has Neosteel coating at 13, so if you need that against a diving style Genji to try and deal with some of that burst damage, Malfurion doesn't provide burst healing. Brightwing doesn't provide burst healing, so maybe a little bit more survivability on that backside. While it actually is a really good choice for this battleground in particular, the Odin, one of the best sieging heroics, one of the most anti-sieging heroics to be able to put the damage on to push or defend. Not too shabby.
Unless this is something that they've practiced a lot, which I don't think so. I feel like this is one of the first times where Expert has been drafted into a bit of a bind. Is that?
Yeah, I think like both games feel that way a little bit. Both drafts, I should say, but the first game, their execution was so much better, it didn't necessarily matter. In this game, it might come down to that. I'm a little bit worried about the Tychus when you look at the DPS down here. I mean, the Grey Mane that can come through, the Genji that can dive through. There's no burst healing. There's slow Brightwing healing. There's slow Malfurion healing. So, you know, if Tychus does get locked down or dove upon, I think they're going to have a bad time. But again, it's the ifs. And last time we had the ifs in game 1, the execution was just better for Expert.
I think that's actually the strength of the Tychus pick is if they get dived upon. If the Tychus does get dived, the resistance that you brought up during the Odin phase is wonderful. He has some of the highest health points that you have on an assassin. The idea behind this is, okay, we can help push with our Webweavers. We have decent defense with Odin, but we can also just put all of our eggs in the basket on Tracer, keep an eye on her, and Odin will be fine by himself. We can come back, we can buy some seconds. I think it's a brilliant pick.
J-How?
I am fully on the Tychus train here. I absolutely love everything he brings to the table. He's under no real threat. Again, there's no point and click stuns, so he's just going to feast up there. Tyrael has built-in spell armor. He can't, in percentage-based damage, he will rip through Tyrael, and it won't be till level 10 that you can hope to get on that. We'll see a bunch of Emerald win. We'll see the Odin. We'll see a lot of things that can deal with that potentially, but it's going to come down to Tyrael on the other side to make sure Sanctification goes down, because if you're met with a Twilight Dream, the Odin, all that stuff, the Emerald win, you're going to have a tough day at the office.
All right, well, time to head over to our commentary team here to get into game at number 2. Gillyweed and Dreadnought, take it away.
Expert up 1 game in the series versus our Soul Torturers Taiwanese team. Dread, on a scale of 1 to hell, it's about time. How do you feel about the Tychus pick?
Hell, it's about time.
The first one.
I love me some Tychus. I was a bit more on the J-House side of that. I feel like Tychus on a map like Tomb of the Spider Queen, anytime that you can drop the Odin, make sure that you get value out of the Webweavers. I'm always so concerned about making sure that those gems actually translates to forts. And, it has the defensive side as well. I mean, it's not 10 out of 10, maybe the most meta pick or the most standout, but I think it was a clever adjustment.
Yeah, what I would like to see from Soul Torturers now is a hard engage, a hard dive on him, surprise him, jump on top of him with the Tyrael out of maybe some of the vents, so that he is forced into Odining to get that armor, and then in that amount of time, just try to do so much damage that he just bursts through, and then you get rid of two. You kill 2 birds with one stone, right? You're taking out the Tychus, and you are getting rid of the Odin.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's going to be a really cool approach here. But I feel like the Tracer, you know, this is something that we were talking about a little bit. It's something that is very, very common all over the world to get on a map like Tomb of the Spider Queen, and I feel like that the Tychus is going to really make up for, you know, what she might struggle with in that kind of siege. That's the real clever part of the draft, I feel like, that I like out of Expert.
Yeah, let's get to it then. Let's see if Expert can win Game 2 and get to the next series to SPT, or if Soul Torturers will be able to tie up the series. We're heading into Tomb of the Spider Queen with Expert leading the series 1-0.
As we see, we are going to start this off again in the blue. It is Soul Torturers, where Zaze will be on the Genji. We have Rhaegar, played by Mir. Skrull will be on the Tyrael. We have Cucumber on the Tassadar. And last, it's going to be God Dog on the God Dog, Greymane.
Not quite the Rhaegar level of God Dog, but pretty good anyways. We've got Expert in the red. Curson will be playing Malfurion. Bad Benny yet again on Murden. Ethereal Angel playing that Tracer. ADRD flexing it out on Brightwing. And finally, Nick will be rocking that Tychus.
Fair Angel on Tracer is always a treat to watch. He makes massive plays here. And with the amount of picks we saw Expert able to get in the last game, I normally on a map like Tomb, I don't expect to kind of see that play, but I do feel like Expert just is a level ahead here of the members of Soul Torturers, and he's going to be a very big problem for every single member.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how Ethereal Angel does in the Tracer versus Genji matchup. It's definitely a skill matchup, trying to figure out if you can bait out the deflect, how your pulse bomb's going to work out when you have to recall. And we've seen a lot of awesome Tracer versus Genji matchups in the past. Know that Nick is super well versed in this, so I'm sure that if Ethereal Angel had any questions about that, Nick could give him some pointers as we were heading into the game.
I really like the laning decision making coming out from Soul Torturers when they feel like they might struggle with the kill potential or against the members of Expert, rather than going to the same lane, matching them consistently. They send the Tassadar to deal with the wave player into the 1 versus 4, and then meanwhile send everybody towards bottom. This is something that originally rose long ago out of the Chinese region, and it's really nice when we see others looking to pick that up.
Yeah, often when you are thinking that you're going to be behind or don't want to deal with the picks, going to a different lane and trying to push the opposite way from that will help you make sure that you can at least keep the advantage going, or at least keep up with Expert, because you get that earlier burst of advantage. But speaking of wave clear, we've got a Moonburn pickup for Malfurion, so he'll be looking to stack that up. Already got 28, so doing very well in that stacking talent so far.
Nice stun coming out onto the Genji post bomb, and he is out of here. Expert finding themselves another first blood. Very, very explosive, much like, I mean, a lot of what we saw out of them from last game.
Yep, it seems like my question has been answered. Ethereal Angel indeed is good at the Tracer versus Genji matchup, though we had some help. There were some roots there. There was even a grenade popping out from Tychus, but Bad Benny's going in. Here comes the Brightwing Phase Shift 2. Immediate Polymorph Mirror taking so much damage and will go down to a Dwarf Toss.
Going down to the Dwarf Toss is a bit demoralizing probably there. Not even having the stun on that. This is going to be a pretty big problem, because with the new Murden, he has a colossal power spike at 7. These kills that Expert has already been able to accumulate are going to only increase a lot faster here post 4. You know, a lot faster.
A lot is indeed a lot. Now, Skrull takes damage, Pulse Bomb there. These are 3 for 3 on Pulse Bombs. That spells a lot of good things for Team Expert in the early game. And most importantly, so it allows them to negate the laning damage that Soul Torturers did with that switch up. As you can see in the bottom lane, there was a lot done. Soul Torturers are at least getting some advantages somewhere. They're even using their good Merking heroes to get some giants here in the bottom lane. But at the very least, Team Expert getting these kills makes sure that they're not losing too much out on the structures and keeps some control over the turn-in points.
And since Tychus has been such a hot topic, as we saw earlier, being the first Tychus pick hero of the HGC finals, we've been talking about how effective, wait a minute, Stormbolt lands, Pulse Bomb there, but Zaze is going to be fine. Is how that doesn't come online until 10, and the rest of the composition struggles quite a bit when it comes to that wave player. So if we see Expert focus on getting a turn-in pre-10, it is in their best interest to heavily focus on that aggression that we've seen into the laning, but post-10, they can play it a bit safer, have Odin with the split push and play a very, very hyphy format.
love the pairing of the Polymorph along with Pulse Bombs too, so that Zace won't be able to deflect potentially these Pulse Bombs that only get stronger once Expert get to level 10 and are able to get what is likely to be Quantum Spike. Very occasionally we'll get something else there, like Pulse Rounds, but usually it is a Quantum Spike because you can even cut through armor there with the percent base damage. Another Pulse Bomb, another connection, but Mur doesn't go down.
ADRD happening back out there with a nice little responsive damage coming out from God Dog. But it's just, even without getting the kills, the members of Expert are at least doing enough damage to really put the fear of the Tracer composition into them. It's not that they're just surviving, they're holding their own. They're constantly having to go back, tap, draw other type of resources, and this is leading to a very controlling laning phase. The biggest thing that Expert, hold up, you're going to see the teleport onto Brightwing. Bad Benny has the Dwarf Toss out. He's going to go ahead and use it. Scroll's not done, but it looks like he is going to be just fine.
Here is my concern for Soul Torturers. They have not turned in any of their gems yet, and they're starting to amass quite a lot on some of the members. Cucumber gets them in. That is crucial. Versus a team composition that is so pick-oriented, and versus an Ethereal Angel who is hitting every single Pulse Bomb, I would not want to be a squishy target. Even Ethereal, right? Like, anybody could go down to the kind of control with the stuns and the Pulse Bomb that Team Expert has. So you really want to make sure that as you are going by the turn-in points, you're dropping off these gems so that you don't get into a point where you have a whole lot and you lose them to a pick.
And with the distraction up on the bottom turn-in, Expert was able to sneak in the very first Webweaver phase. So we'll see what they are able to do here with the Tracer. Going to be responding down to Kirsten, make sure that he's going to be just fine. A lot of damage for Soul Torturers onto the Webweaver, making it essentially valueless here in the bottom lane. This is a really good response for Soul Torturers.
Amazing defense. Using the fact that they had pushed that lane out so much, bottom lane is now not an issue for Soul Torturers, and they can respond elsewhere. They take an extremely safe path to the mid lane so they don't get caught by any members of Team Expert. They should know that Bad Benny loves watching to see if he can catch anybody in rotations, and the team would be quick to follow up.
Stormbolt goes on to Rhaegar. Pulse Bomb fast after. Mir is going to drop. Force the recall on Ethereal Angel and Expert here. Just with precision. Just immediately getting the one shot into any target that Stormbolt lands on.
Yeah, they are surgeons right now with the composition that they are running and the way that they're able to get these kills, 4 kills to the 0 of Soul Torturers. But at least ST did pick up the gems that were dropped. The problem now, though, is the problem that so many teams in Europe face on Tomb of the Spider Queen, and that's the double turn-in phase with heroic abilities. But Expert still needs some gems for that, and that gets some time for Soul Torturers to try to catch back up.
And there very much is a huge momentum swing for Soul Torturers if they keep going at this pace, but the experience doesn't go farther behind than they already are. Just by the fact that they haven't lost that many gems, they are rounding what could be a double turn in play. And unlike the composition of Expert, they do have significant siege on their own. They can really make huge plays. They just have to avoid Ethereal Angel.
He is a scary one, and especially now that he has Quantum Spike, the rest of the heroic abilities as we would expect from Team Expert. Soul Torturers still just about to get the heroic abilities of their own. That will help them out a lot, but Team Expert getting the Mercenary Camp control, trying to get the lanes pushed in a better way, so if they do get a second turn in after this, they can get a lot more done with it.
A lot of damage there for Zaze, making the members of Expert at least second guess their positioning as they lock in those heroics. What do we see? Sanctification is go for the throat, understandably so, with the dive composition that they have composed.
So nice.
Webweaver phase here for the members of Soul Torturers. So this is what we were talking about. They're looking for the double stack. They cannot lose some of these gems that they already have. They need to win these fights.
Yeah, they don't want to lose gems, and that may make them play passive, but they need to make sure they're also getting something done with this Webweaver phase. At least equalize out the lanes, get them pushed in, and get set up so that they have the control over the turn-in points so that they can get the combo of the secondary turn-in. It's a slippery slope for Soul Torturers. They would like to play safely. That is how they play, but they also are down 1 game in this best of 3. If they lose this game, they are eliminated from the HGC finals.
And already with the Tassadar rotation there for Cucumber on the bottom, I'm concerned that they are playing this Webweaver phase a bit too passive. They are a dive composition,
yes,
a death ball composition, and they are willing to split with their very first Webweaver phase. if they do so with the secondary, if they are able to get that immediately after, I just feel like it is a colossal waste of gems for the member of Soul Torturers.
They're getting aggressive scroll throughout the El Druin and dove in with Zace, but Expert just completely sidestepped it.
Twilight Dream is using, maybe not to the effect of the members of Expert 1. It's going to lead to them backing out. The Webweaver phase was dealt with rather effectively. Mainly Soul Torturers not getting as much out of that as they wanted, but it did draw out a Twilight Dream.
Yeah, a whole lot of things happened, but not a lot of whole things happened from that. Soul Torturers, though, still trying to keep the lave pushed so that they can back off and get the turn, and they have more than enough gems necessary to get that. But you can even see having a turn-in phase and still being behind your opponents and experience just not ideal for a team.
And this is a very interesting kind of problem that Soul Torturers has to answer here. With the Webweaver phase being turned or attempted on both sides, is losing Sanctification versus the Twilight Dream a winning trade for them? And I feel like with the dive composition, if they can blow up ADRD, the answer to that is yes. But if Emerald Wind goes off, they're going to be wishing that they had themselves that nice invulnerability.
Almost 13 for Team Expert. Soul Torturers choosing to hang around in the middle, which does show that they want to go for the fight right now. Dragonblade has been popped. He is going in as Zace, but the members of Expert are able to retreat back, and now they do what they would like to do, but God Dog goes for the throw and are rewarded with a kill on Tychus.
He goes back in on a Thero. Zaze gets the follow-up, and they end up getting the kill. The gems now is going to force Bad Benny to dwarf toss and make sure he can secure those, but this leads to Soul Torturers' response to an immediate turn-in attempt. This is the moment where they really can swing this game into their favor.
What I was saying when Expert would do what they like to do, which is get back and then re-engage. They are famous for doing that. That's why Bad Benny for a long time was playing and rocking so much with his Anu Barak, is because they can retreat, regroup, and then capitalize on a lot of these heroic abilities being used. But God Dog saved the day there, getting the first kill. And now Soul Torturers are in a fantastic position as long as they can make these Webweavers mean something to them, get some structures taken down.
And you gotta love the communication of that skirmish. After God Dog gets the first kill, Mir's just like, I can drop the Ancestral if you want to go in, try and risk that play. Zaze with the follow-up. This was just amazing synergy from these members, but has got to continue here. Bad Benny goes in. Nice cleanse force there from Mir and the Sanctification. A little bit suboptimal here, but it's just fine for now. Here we see Expert going with that Odin. They're going to push all the members of Soul Torturers back.
Yeah, maybe just a little too hasty on using both cleanse and Sanctification for Soul Torturers. That has been a common problem for a lot of these teams trying to run these double support-ish type strategies. Obviously, Tyrael is a warrior, but Sanctification works that enabling sort of way. The Webweaver's down. Half of the mid fort as Bad Benny dives forward. Nobody in the bottom, but Brightwing defending versus that. That may be at least one fort down for Soul Torturers, but because those were used and Expert were able to bolster up and get aggressive, you're still not going to be able to open up the map completely.
Yeah, we sit in a situation where after two Webweaver phase, Soul Torturers can only claim a one fort for themselves, and that is not necessarily what you want to be able to say whenever you're playing on Tomb of the Spider Queen. There are 72 gems available for Expert to try and get a turn-in. No talents here, lead, or anything of the like for a long while, so we're going to have an even skirmish over this turn-in point.
Thanks for God Dog. Zace goes in a Swift Strike. No Sanctification for 30 seconds now. That might be a point for Team Expert to abuse, but Expert also playing fairly safely, knowing that Tychus is a prime target for a dive because he doesn't have Odin for another 20 seconds.
Zaze, every time you watch him use any of those cooldowns, and just watch Bad Benny's posturing consistently. He's trying to find for any one of the backliners to overstep a little bit too much, get that follow-up Dwarf Toss, and make sure that Ethereal Angel is going to be primed and ready for the fight. They back out, look for the Knights here, but it really is Team Expert is timing their next strike more than anything here. The Soul Torturers have to be responsive because they don't have a major objective to be able to pick up. There is no opportunity to get these gems in the turn-in. So we're just really figuring out, when does Expert think it is most optimal for them to force this turn-in?
Expert got the bruisers faster. Now seeing that Soul Torturers have gotten their bruisers, they're just trying to push out the lanes. They didn't get overly aggressive. They didn't immediately go to a turn-in point, but ideally they would like to, knowing that they got the bruisers first and can kind of push this wave out. Turning in the gems before they fight is always nice because then you're not so worried, but Bad Benny also has a ton. Look, they found Tassadar though, but a cleanse and a dimensional shift. He is A-okay from the pulse bomb.
Soul Torturers should be looking to try and force a fight or at least pressure up into the mid-fort, knowing that the pulse bomb went down for a small couple of seconds here. I guess he has found himself already back up to 50%. Thero Angel showing why he is known as a very, very scary tracer. But Expert has those 93 gems. They do not want to lose them. Imagine a world where Soul Torturers full wipes that, all of that work ethic that we've seen over the past few minutes just wasted on this battlefield.
Root in after the stun. Scroll uses the ancestral healing. That's one cooldown burnt that Expert can be proud they have forced. This may mean that Soul Torturers backs off from the turn-in and gives this to Team Expert, who could get a gigantic spike in power since they're so close to 16.
Here they go, the polymorph. It draws the deflect. The Thero Angel misses the pulse bomb. Sanctification immediately after.
Oh my gosh! And the Dragon Blade too. That couldn't have been more perfect positioning, but it doesn't matter. Genji's already still down.
Twilight Dream, and now Nick goes into Odin 4 and the Emerald Wind, pushing all the members around here. But in the end, Scroll gets caught out a little bit too far there, and Expert find themselves another kill.
I thought that was maybe the best juke of the whole tournament, getting back into the Sanctification, but Team Expert controlled the fight, takedown 2, and will eventually get a turn in, as long as Tassadar is stopped at some point from getting Bad Benny to turn these in. It's so nice to get these gems off of Benny too. Yeah,
because you know he constantly wants to be up there and trying to get the zone, so the fact that he's able to drop those off, Expert can breathe a little bit easier. God Dog has to tread lightly there. Nice little juke kind of between the two. But the biggest thing is, Odin's down for 50 seconds. Even if this Webweaver phase only nets maybe 1 to 2 forts, it's the secondary Webweaver phase that I'm really looking at here for the members of Expert. And I feel like that's when we're looking towards those keeps, towards those game-ending plays.
Benny off to the side, see if he can dwarf toss in and catch somebody with a cheeky flank. Not seeing that, he instead will just get up in the front so that he can create space for the rest of the team to start working on taking down this fort. They have all of the members of Soul Torturers down here in the bottom, so this is where the defense takes place, which means the longer they keep Soul Torturers here, the better mid and top weapons will do.
That pulse bomb down, Scroll trying to capitalize with the Holy Ground, but the polymorph is enough to deter. Bad Benny lands a double Storm Bolt, but it doesn't look like they want to try and pull the trigger quite yet. Middle and top Webweaver still primed and ready, sieging up, so just keeping them busy here for Expert is a winning trade.
Yeah, that's the spike in power that I was referring to for Team Expert, that they're able to take down all 3 forts in one fell swoop, gives them an experience advantage in this game that we just haven't seen just yet. Now being able to have 18 to the 16 of Soul Torturers. Benny continually just seeing if he can jump on anybody. Where are you at? Let me get him.
The Dwarf Toss is just such a scary, scary tool after that. The most recent rework going into Murden, we heard a lot of hype behind it, and it took all the way for day number 4 for him to rise to the power. Everybody was questioning, would he make it to first pick, first ban, where they're yet to see the ban drawn out. But Bad Benny is really putting up a solid argument for maybe it should be that way.
He has that escape as well as the engage. They almost take him down, but he still had an avatar, if necessary. Interesting revitalized pickup for Malfurion at 16. Gives him back some mana whenever he uses Enervate, but also gives him some cooldown reduction of his own, just like he would be giving to his teammates.
Both teams have enough gems to be able to get this turn in. We see a Thero poking up, trying to scare them off. If we see anybody overextend whatsoever, you know that Bad Benny is looking to strike. Mir has to make sure that he's kiting into the back line. They find themselves one. Nice cleanse there from Mir. That keeps him alive. But now we know that Bad Benny is going to be capitalizing the fact that there is no longer a cleanse available.
Yeah, and that was a capitalizing for Expert too, that they forced Soul Torturers so far up toward the top turn-in. Soul Torturers wondering if they could get back into position to guard the bottom or if they would just have to go to the top. And that's just enough time for Team Expert to make sure that they can get a secondary turn-in. And this hurts. This hurts Soul Torturers a lot. They were already falling behind in experience because they lost all of their forts. The waves are still pushed up really well, so they're going to all hit at a really bad spot.
It's the waves and where they're postured mixed with how close to the 20 brink. And again, that Odin is now available. We have yet to see what it can make happen when a Webweaver phase is going to be backed out. If they prime that top lane enough, I expect a boss immediately after for the members of Expert, but there is the Odin.
Ancestral Healing saves God Dog, and then there's the Sanctification with the Holy Ground too, but all it does is make sure that God Dog lives. It doesn't give them the initiation that they would ideally like. Twilight Dream hits.
Emerald Wind as well, and the Genji was able to make it out. Zay's drawing a lot of cooldowns, maybe enough to be able to deter Expert from achieving this keep with the stun. A cleanse from Mir keeps them up, the Holy Ground, and they're looking to go in.
Soul Torturers are not done in this tournament yet. They have taken down Tracer. They make Bad Benny go into Avatar, and he dwarf tosses out to safety for now, but Zace won't let him go. He's still going in after him, using the Dragon Blade. Had the Swift Strike, but he turns around, hits him with the hammer, and Genji is out.
He is going to get punished, and meanwhile, look at this bottom web weaver. Took out the keep from wall, but more importantly, top keep is falling down to 50%. They get the stun, and they find the Greymane. God Dog is out of here. Polymorph as well. Scroll is gonzo. 3 kills now here for Expert. The turnaround, again, recollecting themselves, reinitiating. Expert is just terrified.
Yeah, it is the team fight style that really started to see them solidifying their spot in the top of Europe, and they've since changed and been able to adapt to different ways of team fighting, but it's still one that they are comfortable with and they excel at. They are so lethal against teams. 3 kills, a keep down. Benny looking for more. Dimensional shift away. They'll at least walk away with a double keep play. Oh, they didn't get the mid keep. My bad, but at least 1 keep down.
You know Bad Benny is terrifying when just one dwarf toss can force a dimensional shift on a full HP Tassadar. It's just nope, right on out of that situation. Nothing to do with that. Okay, so now that it's all said and done, we've had a lot of action, a lot of fireworks. Where do we find ourselves? Soul Torturers, that level, that obviously is a big problem here, but at least they do have near enough gems for the Web Weaver phase. I think the biggest problem here is the fact that so does Expert, already dropping off those 36, 11 in hand, and the boss is a big question mark for both these teams.
Yeah, that is why Soul Torturers are putting Tassadar in the top lane. They're pushing that top lane. They're going to check in on this. They're even going to go for it, just a pure sneak, but they were clearing out that wave.
Yeah, oh my goodness, they're going to be able to get this. Wait a minute, Bad Benny might be able to scout it out, but it feels too little too late. Emerald Wind might be a decision-making, but if he's Sanctification too early and the Holy Ground, they can make this play.
There was no force wall there. He puts the Holy Ground on the point. The boss easily over to Soul Torturers, but the fight is terrifying.
Really
but
good
Odin
job.
and Emerald Wind, they disengaged. They're fine. They did it.
ADRD actually had a very cheeky play there to just go to the escape route. Emerald Wind kind of blind to make sure that nobody could get out of there.
Yeah.
But since everyone had the mobility over the sidewall, 2 heroics used, and Soul Torturers take away a win condition from Team Expert.
Not out of it yet, but almost 20. Bottom lane is still a problem for Soul Torturers, but behind the boss, they want the turn in 4 more gems as Benny shows up. They didn't quite get the Web Weavers.
But there are, oh my gosh, how, okay, so at least Expert doesn't have enough on their own here to be able to get it quite yet. As Soul Torturers going to be able to hit that 20?
Close.
They're 2 away. Bad Benny, he found him. This is so tense. Will Soul Torturers be able to clip this 20? They will be able to do so. Bad Benny starts the channel, and nobody's comfortable to be able to move out there quite yet, so Expert gets the Web Weaver phase.
Web Weaver phase, they might get a Murd, dodge a Stormbolt, running for his life in that Ghost Wolf form, and he gets back to safety. 20's here, and Soul Torturers are ready to go.
Nice Holy Ground, but Thero's going to use 1 blink, and he's just fine. Bottom Web Weaver is prepped and ready. Keep in mind, it's going to spawn very close to that core, and it has the catapults to be able to aid it, so eventually someone on the side of Soul Torturers is going to have to answer to that.
Yeah, that's why they're going for the fight right here, right now with the Holy Ground. Expert continually moving back every single time. There was the Twilight Dream. Tyrael does not live through the Pulse Bomb, but Murden goes down. It's a bloodbath.
God Dog goes in, and he's just popping off, going for the throat binding too. Nick gets Tassadar right down. The members of Soul Torturers, though, still have pressure on their core. They need to be able to try and get this retreat here. But the fact that they were able to turn this fight, it is just amazing. They didn't even get Sanctification off, and they still had the confidence to turn it around.
God Dog again showing up for this team in a big way, and Soul Torturers on their last lifeline, their maybe final game. If they lose it, they're out. Are able to get enough kills to stay in this game again. But unfortunately, it took so long that they do lose another keep. 1 solid keep left between Team Expert and the core of ST.
Soul Torturers do have enough gems for another turn-in. Because they were able to pick up that boss, it's going to be a long while till we find that win condition as an option. My biggest concern here, Gilly, is that we've already seen 2 Web Weaver phases on the side of Soul Torturers, and they didn't make too much happen with it here. At this point, they can't have that happen anymore. They need a minimum keep, possibly looking for game, because Expert's pressure between those 2 catapults, and again, because the boss is not available for so long, it feels like when these gems are turned in, they need to be looking for game.
There's Ping. Stroll wants to Holy Ground, cursing into the rest of the team. He has Twilight Dream as he comes out of this ice block. Emerald Wind there too. He uses it to get away with the Astral Communion.
Mira getting caught on the backside, and then Nick getting the big red button all over God Dog. Expert just gets 2 kills, find a third, and what felt like such a tense game for so very long, Expert immediately just shuts it down with a fast opener.
Yeah, that was all Curson. The team came in and helped. Most certainly they came in and helped. The Emerald Wind was awesome, but to know that he would have Twilight Dream out of that ice block, use Astral Communion over the wall, he baited and he delivered. Soul Torturers have lost 3, they've lost 4. There's only Tassadar left, and Team Expert will be able to clean up the core and take this series, moving on to the final Deciders match versus Super Perfect Team.
Very insane play from Team Expert here. The fact that they picked that high tracer, the risky lack of wave clear, and still make it look so very good. Yes, there were a couple of moments where maybe they didn't get as much out of the Web Weaver phase and the wind conditions, not predicting that boss play, but ultimately it did feel like from minute 1 to the very last one that they had pretty solid control. But you got to give a shout out to Soul Torturers here. I feel like that was some amazing play, that they stood up to a dominant team fighting team like Team Expert, was able to turn around fights even being men down.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see Soul Torturers both versus Team Expert and SPT. This is not the Soul Torturers you would know before. This was the super team. 3 members of old Soul Torturers and 2 from Deadly Kittens. They felt like they had a long time to figure out the meta by watching the other groups. They knew they had to be the team that adapted the best. It just wasn't quite enough for them in this potential group of death.
And with that, we are going to send it over to our analysts to get a couple more thoughts and breakdown on that game.
That's right, Expert stays alive here, and it wasn't all too easy, though, to say the least. Unfortunately for Soul Torturers, they are now eliminated, but it was a good match overall, if not a bit slow and steady and paced.
Slow and steady wins the race. Wolf4 t-shirt said that exact same quote on it just a couple of days ago.
Wins the game, not wins the race.
It's
Close
still the
enough.
same. It's still the same. But either way, the Taika Spit came in at the end. As soon as we got off here, oftentimes we continue to talk about the draft, right? We could probably talk about the draft for forever. But the Taika Spick, I really liked it. Of course, it was a slow, steady pace. It wasn't like the dominant 17-1 or whatever it was in game 1.
Yeah.
But it was enough to get the job done. And I think that's all Expert wants to do because they've a much tougher test ahead of them.
It was a safer pick, obviously, than the crazy Genji Abathur style that we saw in game 1. You've got this slow, methodical hero that kind of cues forward, goes for a dash, ends up dropping. You know, this mech economy is very safe, gets that extra armor. And you burn down the material. Doesn't always end up being that way, and Expert did have some problems in that game, but I think the big moment there that decided everything was just the bait there where you see Curson just poking, and then the ice block into that jump Twilight Dream.
He took Soul Torturer's desperation of trying to get back in the game and used it against him, which is always a clever play in itself. But no, on the Taika train, man, it was a wonderful pick. It was safe, and that's the power in picking it, right? Making it hard for you to be dive upon.
A final point on that, using that as bait, it goes back to the fact that there was literally no CC on the other side. So what do you do to interrupt any Twilight Dream? You can't. It was literal bait because there was no real threat. I mean, obviously there's sanctification, things that could have come out in that team fight, but that was literal bait right there.
Well, thank you very much, guys. It's time now to go over there and go over with Kev and go over with Benny.
Thanks so much, James. We are over here and we're ready to do an interview. I'm here with Bad Benny, Warrior player from Team Expert here, and congratulations on your win, of course. Fantastic. You move further into Group D. One more match to go to claim that Blizzcon spot, but I got to ask you, the quality of your play, is it due to some secret kind of horse camp preparations?
Not this time around. For the Western Clash, it was the horse camp. Now it's just eating some spicy food in Korea and practicing.
Fantastic. Well, let me get your opinion on this group. How did this play out? I know that first match against Ballistics was a tough one. Did that play out the way you expected? Did you come into this group knowing it was going to be a tough challenge there against the Korean team? What are your thoughts on that?
I thought we would do better against Ballistics. They had done really good preparation, actually, so they ended up with much better drafts, and yeah, we didn't stand a chance, basically. So we expected to do better against them, but we're still confident we can take the second seed now.
Awesome. Well, one more match to go. Super perfect team from China. How are you feeling about that matchup? Is there any particular approach you plan to take in that? You've seen some games out of them already. How are you feeling?
I'm a bit nervous. They look like we didn't think they would be able to be that close to Ballistics, because they still put up quite a fight, I think. But I think we can win it. So.
All right, well, I'll let you get ready for that match. That's the next one coming up here. Congratulations. We'll see you in the next matchup. All right, Team Expert moves on to our deciders match against Super Perfect Team from China. It's coming up right after a short break. Stick with us. Last match of the day for Group D.
To the same conclusion as